Hello, my name is Michaela McGregor, and I want to talk today about some really cool things and some not so cool things about UChicago, 10 pros and 10 cons, which will hopefully be relevant if you've just recently gotten into UChicago and you're trying to decide whether or not you want to come to this school. And I will say right now that these are in no specific order. There's no prioritization with these, and I will be starting with the cons first, so that way we can end on a happy note and, it won't leave a bad taste in your mouth. This is obviously not me speaking for the student body. It's just a list of general things that people tend to complain or praise about the school. Yeah, very subjective, but let's start with the cons. Number one is the Wi-Fi, because it always cuts out all the time. Like, you'll be doing something and all of a sudden your page won't load, or you can't get into Canvas to submit your assignment. But the worst part is it cuts out most often in the libraries, which probably makes sense because that's where it's like a concentration of people using the Wi-Fi. But this school has literally the worst Wi-Fi ever. Last year in my dorm, I was like on the outskirts of campus because I was in Max P and it was far to the west of campus. And anytime I tried to like FaceTime people, it was just constantly cutting out, like just really not good coverage here. I don't know why. Number two is the curriculum is not standardized. This kind of means a couple of things. There's not a lot of continuity in regards to like how you declare your major or even like the classes for your major. So things will depend greatly upon the professor you get or year by year the way that a class is structured. It changes quite often, so you'll find that someone's experience with a certain class is going to be very different from someone else's experience with a particular class. And kind of going along with this is that classes aren't offered every quarter, and which is annoying, obviously, because you might need to try to get your core Phi-Sci requirement done, but a certain class isn't offered. But another annoying part of it is, like, I know at least for a lot of the core requirements, it'll say that it's offered, but then all of a sudden, like right before the quarter starts, it'll say, oh, not offered in 2021, 2022. And then you're just kind of like, oh, well, that's great. I can't take this class. Or like it just won't even show up on the pre-registration. I've looked for a class before and it's just not there. So I mean, maybe I've just gotten unlucky with these searches. I feel like it's just kind of this general trend of the curriculum is very scattered sometimes in that it's not heavily regulated or standardized. Academic advising. I do want to preface this part by saying that I was very fortunate in that my academic advisor is a really cool guy and he's been super helpful for me, but that is not the common experience here. Like, nearly everybody has a terrible experience with advising, and the primary reason for that is that they're constantly losing advisors and hiring new ones. So like, there are students who have been here for 3 years but have had like 4 advisors. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, there was a poll recently on Facebook or Reddit or something, and so many students have had more advisors than they've had like the number of years here, which obviously makes it difficult because then you can't establish a bond with your advisor, and it's hard to get them to know you and what you want to do for classes. And I mean, even if you have the same professor for all 4 years, they are so spread thin here that it's really hard to forge that sort of relationship. It's very meeting by meeting here. Like, you go in, they maybe remember your name and face, but like it's not like you chat and have tea every Friday. They just have so many students that you just make an appointment, sit down with them, explain your current situation, and then most often the best thing that happens is they'll just point you in the right direction of where to go. They'll be like, okay, speak to this person because they're the head of this department. Because academic advising itself, it's they can't tailor themselves to every single student. So that area of UChicago is definitely lacking a bit. The school definitely places you in a bubble with your major, and this definitely is more severe depending on what your major is. If you're doing pre-med, you're obviously doing all pre-med courses, and you're not doing all of the normal Phi-Sci and bio requirements for the core, so you end up taking classes with the same students very often. This holds true for a lot of majors, in that if they have a lot of requirements for their major, they don't get to branch out and meet new students. I think that people do tend to just kind of stay in their bubbles for the most part. I mean, this obviously isn't true for everyone, and I think that it can vary depending on who you reach out to or like what RSOs you join, that sort of thing, but there's definitely a bubble atmosphere here. The core I have both on the cons and the pros because there are cons and pros about it. So I am going to start with just a couple of cons about it, and the first is that it doesn't exactly help your GPA because they're really hard courses and you have to take them across a variety of subjects that you may not be good in, which ultimately is not very friendly towards your grade point average. It's just kind of the truth. Pretty much everyone here has a GPA that's lower than what they want it to be. You kind of just like have to accept the fact that you have to take these courses that you don't necessarily feel comfortable in, and inevitably you're going to not do so hot on some of the exams or essays, and it just kind of happens. Unfortunately. The core is also a con if you know exactly what you want to do with your education, because it leaves you less time to take electives or, just different classes aside from your major, because you're trying to fit in all these core requirements and then you're trying to do all of your major requirements. And it's like, if you know what you want to do, then you're just kind of wasting your time taking classes in a subject that you're certain does not appeal to you. Okay, this one's a big one. Pre-registration. There are lots of technological issues with this, and placement and getting into the class you want, overflow, especially in the arts classes. It is so hard to get into an arts class because there's just not enough seats. You'll find that a lot of students, including myself, have started a quarter with like only 1 or 2 classes in their portal, and they have to like very last minute try to add drop and get into something so that they are not doing 2 classes during the quarter, which is not allowed. It's just so hard to get into some classes. And then the most annoying part of this is after pre-registration, some courses go to strictly consent-based. So it's like you have to email professors and try to get them to consent you into the class. Even if it says like 14 out of 17 spots are filled, it'll still sometimes say like request consent, which is just obnoxious because like if there's a seat open, you just want to click it and add it, but it doesn't let you all the time. What is most annoying though is like some professors just won't even use the online consent form, and it's like you have to reach out and try to do this paper thing, which almost happened to me. Didn't end up happening. It's just a very lengthy process. This con has to do with things natural. So this may not be that big of a deal for you. It's kind of a minor one, but like the campus is filled with wasps, especially in the late summer when you first arrive. Like if you go to sit down on the quad to read your book or enjoy a nice lunch or something, it's not fun because they swarm around you and they land on you. And I'm like, whenever I sit on the quad, I have to try to like keep my cool, like, oh my gosh, it'll fly away, it'll go away eventually. It's so awful. Like there are wasps everywhere. It's also very muddy. Be aware if you go to the quad and you sit down in the grass thinking that it looks nice and green and dry, when you sit up, you will likely have a big brown muddy stain on the back of your pants, which is not a pleasant experience. Okay, this one my friend Karina and I were discussing last night because she thinks that the sidewalks here are shoveled very nicely. I beg to differ, and I think they're shoveled horribly because the guy's like leaping through like deep pockets of snow and slush. I thought it was so messy this last winter, and like slipping and sliding because some of the salt was thrown down haphazardly on one side of the sidewalk. But Karina thinks it's good, so like it maybe just depends on your perspective of the side, or maybe it depends on which sidewalks you traverse. I guess I'd have to consult more people on this one, but I think it's a con. School spirit, if you come here, be prepared. No one cares about sports for the most part. There's no hype about any games or anything. If you're a student athlete, don't expect the whole school to be showing up to your game or something. At least for me, I've never heard of like big groups of people getting excited for games. Of course, I'm also not a sports person, so maybe I'm just not hanging out with the right people, but for the most part, this school is not known for its school spirit in regards to athletics. There's also a lot of unexpected time commitments here. Like first year, they don't really talk about it before you come, but you're thrown into these writing seminars for both Hume and Soch actually, and that takes up a fair amount of time, and just labs, discussions, like it's not just the classes here. You've got a lot of bonus stuff that you have to do, so just be aware of that because it's really frustrating how it fills up your schedule. And then finally, printing. Printing stinks here. It's incredibly expensive. I had to print my geography essay, which, albeit it had like a lot of maps in color that I had to print out, but it ended up costing like over $10. Obviously, it's just like pocket money amounts, so relative to other things, it's not as much, but like for printing, it just felt like a lot of money. Also, the printing process itself is just so unnecessary because you don't just click the print button. Oh no, that would be way too easy here. You either have to upload it to this USB thing, or you can upload the file to your printing account through UChicago, which it's like you click on a button on that website and it takes 20 seconds for the page to load each time or more. Like 20 seconds is a minimum. And then once it's in there, you can go into the printer, swipe in, access your file through the printer, and then click print. And I get it's because they need to charge you with the ID or whatever. I don't know. I just think it's very obsolete technology, and it's not convenient if you're running late on time. Okay, I am done complaining now because I am moving on to the pros, and I want to start with the course feedback. So the course feedback is basically at the end of every single quarter, everyone fills out this form that basically says like, how many hours of work did you do? How organized was the professor? What advice would you have for students who want to take this course? Do you feel like your interest in this subject has been heightened, satisfied, or diminished? And these course reviews are like so amazing because every time when I'm trying to pick my classes, I peruse these course feedback forms for so long to try to figure out what exactly I want for a professor. And if someone says, oh yeah, the professor is brilliant, but they didn't organize their lectures very well and they weren't good about writing down due dates for assignments and giving instructions, then I kind of know I want to steer clear of that class because I don't do well without very explicit instructions. So course feedback forms are incredible. They're anonymous, so you feel like you can write whatever you want, within reason. Like, you obviously don't want to be like incredibly rude, but you can write whatever you want at the end of the quarter, which is also just very cathartic if there's something about the class you feel like should have been restructured. Book requests. UChicago has so many books here. Like, any book that you're looking for, they'll probably have. It's really bizarre. Like, I've searched the most random of things and they have it, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. But even if they don't, they have a really cool interlibrary loan, so you can easily request it online and they'll just like send it from another university, from somewhere else to the reg, and you can go pick it up. And like, that's just so cool. It comes so quickly. It's so easy. You just log in on your laptop, type in the book, and then click request. So really amazing book request system. Maroon dollars. So you do like pay for these, but you can then use them anywhere. So like, you go to a cafe, not anywhere obviously, but like most places on campus, you can just swipe with your ID and it just takes it out of your Maroon dollars account, which is so helpful. It's fast, quick and easy to make purchases. And they also, because we were online for winter quarter, I believe, that was why they gave us like some extra money through Maroon dollars to spend at the bookstore, which they never do. By the way, this is like an anomaly, but it's just really exciting because now I can basically just like get stuff from the bookstore. So that's great. The dining options. I've heard people complain about the food, but I've always found that it's rather good. I mean, sometimes like the seasoning or something will be off, but for the most part, they have a lot of options, which is really cool. They've always got a full array of vegan, halal, kosher, comfort food, like gluten-free, allergy-free section, plus just like general pizza area, pasta, grilled stuff, like burgers and fries, a salad bar. Some of the dining halls have really good ice cream. It's my favorite part. And they also just have an array of desserts too, like cake and brownies and cookies and everything. So you can never go wrong in the dessert department here. It's very yummy. Okay, and then now the pros about the core. First part of this is like the core tutors. So even though you're having to take these subjects in the core, they have these really fantastic core tutors that you can go to. It's like Sunday through Thursday in the evenings, and they are really good about just tutoring you in whatever subject you need help in. Chemistry, math, physics. The core tutors are for like scientific or quantitative based classes, but they also have a core tutor writing program too, so if you're struggling with your writing, you can also consult them, and they're super helpful. Another thing just about the core that's a pro is it forces you to take classes that you wouldn't have taken otherwise, and I took Earth as a Planet in autumn quarter and then Galaxies in winter quarter for my physical science requirement, and I am now doing an astronomy and astrophysics minor. I never would have thought I'd be interested in this, and I never would have taken those classes if not for the core. So that's something that's just truly incredible about it, is how you can discover new subjects that you like due to these topics you're compelled to get grades in. The arts pass. So UChicago gives you a free arts pass, which gives you access to over 70 like cultural and art institutes in the Chicago area, and that includes the Art Institute, as well as like discounts for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, discounts like the Shakespeare Theater. You can get into like the MSI, Museum of Science and Industry, for free, the Field Museum for free, I believe. There's so many places you can get in for free, and it's really cool. It makes Chicago really affordable to explore. Events on campus. You can't get bored here. It's like physically impossible to get bored here, because if you are bored, which is actually a little bit weird because of the workload, but if you are bored, they have professor talks all the time through different like majors or RSOs, or basically clubs. They'll provide professor talks, discussions, which are just really fascinating to attend and listen to, because the professors here just give excellent lectures. And then also the student orchestra is fantastic, and also just theater performances, doc film screenings. Like, there's so much going on. If you look on the events calendar of your major or of a certain RSO, you can never have nothing to do. Career advancement is something I've mentioned before in my videos, because it's really a good department here. They offer Metcalf internships, which means that if you apply for a Metcalf internship, you can get money for an unpaid internship. And also they'll, like, first year you can get matched with a summer internship through like this match program they have. They also just offer a lot of one-on-one meetings. If you have any questions about a career, you can do practice interviews. They'll read over your resume, so all sorts of tools to make you feel more prepared for a career after college. Okay, the small professor to student ratio. This is kind of like a fact that you see plastered all over brochures and stuff, but I kind of want to talk about the pros of what this really means to have that low ratio. In a lot of core classes, some of them are big, but a lot of the core classes are going to be really small, and this means it's going to be engaging and you have lots of discussion, you get to participate, and you hear everyone's opinions. It also means that the professor probably will know you by name, and this is great because you can actually connect with them and they'll get to know you. It makes office hours a lot more intimate because there's less people there. Everything about it is more personalized, and I think that that's the best way to kind of have an education, is when you can have those bonds with the person who's teaching you. And also you get lots of individualized feedback on assignments, whereas big classes, you obviously don't get that as much. And this is definitely leaning more towards like the Hume social sort of stuff. STEM, you're less likely to get this sort of feedback thing, but you'll still have lots of classes here where it's like some students are around a table with the professor sitting at that table with them. It's very cozy and you get to really engage with people. Okay, last but not least, I put the quarter system on the pros list, and I debated about this for a while, like, do I put it on the cons list? Because the 9-week quarter is an issue because it means everything's crammed into 9 weeks. But the quarter system itself, I think, is a pro because it means you get to take a lot more classes than you would if you were on the semester system, because you can take 4 classes per quarter, so ends up Although I guess some students take 6 classes per semester at college, but it just means you get more variety during the year. So like you're swapping more often, and if you don't like a class, good, you're out of it soon. If you really like a class, then you can take another one similar to it the next quarter and get in, just a lot of shifting of classes and schedules throughout the year, which I really like. I like to have something shaking up each quarter when I return. It's just too bad that the quarter is so short. A lot of people want to go back to the 10-week quarter because it would just give an extra week for time, but it's a 9-week quarter. So that's 10 pros to accompany the 10 cons that I gave at the beginning. I think that's everything. I hope that it was illuminating and, maybe it deterred you from wanting to come here, or maybe it inspired you to want to come here. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your week.